So we'll work on that. That'll be coming attractions. But this year we put in about 50 million in assistance for schools and 46 million in community revenue sharing, which should then help, the communities all across the state deal with the rising energy costs, because at $120 a barrel oil, roughly $4 a gallon plus, it's difficult for the schools and City Hall to operate also. We had a $2.95 billion capital budget, which is roughly the same size we had a year ago, which is easy for the state to finance. A little less than $1 billion of that is federal. So just round it off, you could just figure the state put in about $2 billion and the federal government put in the rest. We had projects that went all over the state from one end to the other. The governor started his submission, and then we had some dialogue with him, and we had an agreement that we would keep the spending level to last year's spending level, plus $150 million bond defeasance that we did. And then we spent a month actually haggling over what we just agreed on. So, but we agreed on that. And then we agreed that we'd add $1.022 billion in the capital budget in the legislative process. And then we had a discussion with the House, between the House and the Senate, because the capital budget starts on the House, or excuse me, on the Senate side, the operating budget on the House side. So we agreed with the House that the Senate would take $722 million of it, the House would get 300, and that's a 50-50 split in the way the Senate does its math. So everything went good. We agreed to add the bigger, heavier lifts in the Senate side, though, to get to that agreed upon 50-50. We also agreed with the governor, and initially I wasn't supportive of it, the $450 million bond, a GEO bond proposal that will come before the voters this fall. The reason, I'm not really excited about bond proposals is we should, in my opinion, be paying cash versus debting the state, because we have the ability to pay cash. But it allows us to have a smaller capital budget number and then come forward with a bond proposal. But in one of my first meetings with the governor, I told him I was happy with a $3 billion capital budget without the bonds, and he wanted the bonds in his discussions as his concept, so that's fine. I told him we'll go forward with a bond package, and if that's what he wants. We had an initial submission by the governor that was heavily loaded in the Anchorage and Matsu, 200 million in Anchorage Port and 100 in McKinsey Port, and we scaled him back. And actually, before that bond proposal left the first committee in the Senate, they already added $100 million to it, so it was pretty much dead on arrival when it hit the Finance Committee, and we just started over. So we've got that Shelter Cove road in there, and there's some other projects around southeast, but that project then will have a total of about 29 million, and that should be enough to hopefully get it done. We've also got 9.9 in airport improvements that we've been working with the borough on, worked on them to get that resolved. So hopefully that's going to be issued behind the community when the governor signs the budget. There's 9 million in bridge repairs, and that needs to have more attention into the future, and we'll continue to work on that issue. The Saxman Seaport, there's some funds in there for the seaport. We're going to get, as we're all probably well aware in here, we're going to have an expansion of our district family in the fall, and we're going to have communities coming into our district that have economic challenges that they face, and it's going to be more difficult for us to go in the future and deal with issues like the Saxman Seaport roof, just because we're going to pick up Metlakatla, Craig, Klawock, Cake, Angoon, Haines, and we're going to have the same piece of the pie, and we're going to spread it thinner. So this year, when I sat down and took a look at the district list, I was kind of having that in mind, that for some of these projects, it's their last chance to either get it done or not get it done. So the Seaport stood out as a project I felt if I didn't include it in this year's budget, it's probably never going to get in there. I had some difficulty with the OMB department a few years ago on their desire to even have that in there and getting it by a veto pin. But with the agreement that we have with the governor on the spending limits, and the Senate kept within it, and the House kept within it, and the governor's then doesn't have to remove projects to get down to a target number. So I'm confident that all of our projects will stay intact. He might find a problem with one or two or something, but I don't know of any. But if he does, I certainly would expect him then to step in and do his duty to, protect the state's interest. We added a little bit of trinket money for the shipyard. We added some funds. There's $10 million to build out what I call I tease the guys about trinkets, but they're pretty, overhead cranes and, fabrication shops and things like that. But that'll help move the project forward. My concern was you build a big building and you leave some of the key components out. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I want to see it built out so we can go on to the next step. We trimmed a little bit of money out of Ward Cove. They have enough there at $7.5 million to move forward. We'll be looking at adding more money into Ward Cove next year to get the docks for the ferries and also get the NOAA ship hopefully wrapped up. And that's probably going to be an ongoing several-year process, but it'll be quite a facility when we're done with it. And then we got berth 1 and 2 replacement of $7 million. We then sat down to do the budget, and then we picked some projects. I took the berth Ward Cove out of the bond bill because I wasn't sure at that time what the bond bill was going to look like, and I didn't want the bond bill to have the Port of Anchorage in it for $200 million and McKinsey for $100 million and have the voters vote it down in the rail belt and then lose our dock. So, because we need it, we don't have time to diddly-daddle on that. So I put that in the capital budget and then put Shelter Coal for $19 million in the bond package. So if it fails, I still have time then to back up next year and go after it. But I think the bond package at the end looks pretty good. And there's also, when the budget actually rolled out, from what I heard from the DOT guys, they were extremely happy that, one, they got the funds, and two, they think they could actually engage this and move it forward in conjunction with the Forest Service. So we'll see how it all plays out, but we'll certainly have a frontline seat here sitting in Ketchikan. On the northern end of the district, there was $14 million put in the bond package for a road to Catlian Bay, and that's about a 5-mile road extension. And then there's some other projects coming, hopefully next year, off of the Forest Service list. But the concept was if the Forest Service is supportive of it, and the governor's office is supportive of the roads to resources, and we fund it with cash, and get away from some of the hurdles and burdensome EIS stuff we have to deal with federal money, maybe we can actually get something done. And I'll be standing here, hopefully, unless I'm out there and listening to somebody else do the presentation, next year's capital budget, reporting back how successful we are. What's the stage of each one of these projects? On the Alaska class ferry, we put in, added an additional $50 million in the operating budget. At the end, when the House sends us the operating budget, they've done most of the work because they've got, more folks over there and they spend more time on the operating budget. They send it to the Senate. We tweak it a little bit, review it. Most of the in-depth work, again, is done on the House side of the operating budget. And then we have all this cash at the bottom of the ledger. Well, the worst thing you could do is give the House a bunch of cash because they go crazy. So we took $500,000 and suggested that we put it in the PERS retirement system, $500 million into the TERS retirement system, and then $50 million into the Alaska class ferry holding account to get ready for the, finishing off the funding in case it goes over 120 on the current one, and then start funding the next model or the next boat or ship, I should say. Well, the House didn't agree on the PERS and TERS funding, which is fine because the money just goes to the savings account, sits there anyway, so it's not like we don't have it if we need it. And then we squabbled over the $50 million. And in the end of the day, the $50 million stayed in the budget, And if the governor doesn't remove it, it'll sit in the holding account. And I personally would like to see another 50 million added to it next year, and 50 the next following year, because we've got a target of 3 ships, and we need to every year just keep chunking away at it. So at the end of the day, we get our first ship built, and then whenever the shipyard, and Randy will know a lot more about it than I do, is ready to go on the next ship, it would be nice just to queue the next one right in behind it. There's 3 million, to SEPA in the budget to do hydro site planning and engineering. I'm personally interested in seeing this issue of raising Swan Lake Dam. I think it's 16 million roughly to pump it up a few feet and increase the capacity, I think by what, 50% or something, or 30%, rather than scrimp it down and only do 10 million or 8 million. And it's as easy for me to put in 16 million as it is 8 million in a project like that. So I want to do the full boat, get it as high as we can, store as much water as we can, because that's one of the fundamental problems we have with all our hydros we're building is water capacity. And so I wanted to touch bases on that and then expand on that a little bit out, because we're going to get all of Prince of Wales and pretty much all of Admiralty and pretty much all of Ketchikan, and then we're going to have Haines.